It's the case that half of Australia has been watching and the other half is absolutely gripped by. Bruce Lehrmann has been found a rapist by Justice Michael Lee in the federal court. I'm Claire Harvey, the editorial director of The Australian and host of our daily podcast, The Front, and Ellie Dudley is our legal affairs correspondent. Ellie, what was that moment like for you when Justice Lee found that Bruce Lehrmann is in fact a rapist?
Oh my gosh, well he drew it out a little bit, right? Because he started by saying they did have sex, and as we know, Bruce Lehrmann has consistently denied that any sexual intercourse ever took place that night. So he starts by saying that they've had sex. You and I are frantically blogging for the online blog on The Australian. He starts there and then he slowly starts around this discussion about consent. He found that Brittany Higgins didn't say no on a loop, as she has repeatedly said that she did say, but eventually got to the point where I said no. Bruce Lehrmann was hell-bent on having sex with this woman, hell-bent on getting his own gratification and couldn't care less whether she consented or not, basically.
And it came down to her level of intoxication, didn't it? Brittany Higgins has said she was 10 out of 10 drunk. Bruce Lehrmann said that he knew that she had had a few drinks, but not that she was heavily intoxicated. The judge found quite early on in his judgment that she'd had at least 11 drinks, that he had seen her have 6 of those drinks, and that then she'd had shots at the karaoke bar that they went to afterwards.
Yeah, and he bought her some of those drinks as well, right, which goes to his credit. This was something that Justice Michael Lee started talking about as soon as he handed down his judgment, was that both Brittany Higgins and Bruce Lehrmann were not very credible in their evidence, and they both gave unsatisfactory evidence, and a lot of that went to Bruce Lehrmann's interactions with Brittany Higgins at the Dock Hotel that night.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot during this case about what the judge would do if he found, as he'd indicated he would, that they're both liars, that they'd both lied about various things at various times. He did find that today. He said that Bruce Lehrmann's accounts of things could not be believed, and that Brittany Higgins had made up things as well. But what he really brought it back to was common sense. Was it sensible that a 23-year-old heterosexual man, having had a crush on a woman at work, having taken her to a bar, finally got to kiss her, she was reciprocating and touching him on the thigh, they got into an Uber together, went back to Parliament House to drink whiskey, which is what the judge found. It's just not plausible that that man didn't want to have sex.
Yeah, absolutely. And also going to the point of, he had a girlfriend at the time, right? And Justice Michael Lee made a bit of a point about this, that they were on their way home and, Bruce said that he had to go back to Parliament House to collect his keys and he didn't want to go and wake up his girlfriend. And, at one point, Justice Lee referred to Bruce Lehrmann as a cad who had no issues cheating on his girlfriend at all, and that this excuse of wanting to go back to Parliament House to pick up his keys was completely unbelievable. A lot of this also hinged on evidence that we heard from Lauren Gain, one of the Liberal staffers who was with the group at both the Dock Hotel and the 88 MPH bar. What is it that she said that the judge relied on so heavily?
She said that she saw Bruce and Brittany kissing, and she texted a friend to say Bruce and Brittany hooked up last night. That was powerful contemporaneous evidence for the judge, that it was understood by people in their group that they were together in a romantic sense at that bar. That's why the judge said it just didn't make sense for Bruce Lehrmann to say that she got into the Uber with him and came in with him while he picked up his keys, and it didn't make sense for Brittany Higgins to say she didn't really know why she got in the Uber and she was confused about what Bruce Lehrmann wanted to do at Parliament House. The judge found that they went there to have sex.
And he definitely found that the most likely reason that they went there was to get the whiskey, and Bruce Lehrmann was sexually attracted to Brittany Higgins, and this was the first night that she had seemed to be reciprocating his desire to be intimate with her because they were kissing at the 88 MPH bar, as Lauren Gain testified. Once they got to Parliament House, Justice Lee found that Justice Lee found and completely rejected Bruce Lehrmann's recollection of events, that he went one way and Brittany Higgins went another and they didn't see each other again. And he actually went to evidence that Bruce had told their Chief of Staff, Fiona Brown, in the days after the rape occurred. He said that he had seen Brittany on his way out, but then later when talking to police and when testifying in this trial, he said he never saw her again. Fiona Brown is somebody as well who came up today, and Justice Lee seemed to really appreciate the evidence that she had given in the trial, didn't he?
Oh, She has been really the only person who has been praised by the judge, the only major player who has been praised by the judge and who has escaped all criticism. Fiona Brown was the chief of staff who was the boss of both Brittany Higgins and Bruce Lehrmann. She was working for Minister Linda Reynolds. She was not an heavily experienced chief of staff. This was her first chief of staffing kind of role. And suddenly she was confronted with this situation where two young people had come into work after hours. One of them told her he'd come in to drink whiskey. The other one told her didn't have a coherent story, Brittany Higgins. But Brittany Higgins claimed in the project story and in court that she had told Fiona Brown very early on that she had been raped, that she'd woken up essentially to find Bruce Lehrmann on top of her. The judge completely rejected that. The judge said it wasn't until much later in the week, after Bruce Lehrmann had been effectively sacked, that Brittany Higgins disclosed that to Fiona Brown. So that meant that the judge completely blew up Brittany Higgins and Channel 10's claim that there was a political conspiracy at play here. He really vindicated the Morrison government, didn't he?
Yeah, he absolutely did. I think at one point he said that trying to grip onto that theory was trying to grip onto smoke, or grip onto a pillar of smoke or something like that. He said that this story spun by the project, that there was a conspiracy to cover up Brittany Higgins' rape allegations was worthless, basically. He said that it was also damaging, and there was a lot of collateral damage in that, including the underlying rape allegation that was going on in this project interview. He said that it was completely overshadowed by this political conspiracy story that the project had pushed. And
then 10 made it worse for themselves by trying to argue in court, oh, we never said there was a political conspiracy. I mean, if people drew that assumption from the program, I mean, whoops. The judge just absolutely rejected that. And then he went on to slam Network 10 and Lisa Wilkinson, particularly over the Logie speech. So what does she say in the Logie speech, and why did the judge find that that was such a disaster?
So the Logie speech was given at some point in 2022, just before Bruce Lehrmann's criminal trial was supposed to get underway. It ultimately created a stay on that criminal trial. Justice Lucy McCallum, very upset about that, said through gritted teeth she had to delay the trial because Lisa Wilkinson made these claims talking about the courage of Brittany Higgins coming forth. Ultimately, Justice Lee found that Lisa Wilkinson, that speech had shown that Lisa Wilkinson entirely believed everything that Brittany Higgins had said, even though Lisa Wilkinson took a while to admit that when giving evidence. The other thing was that the Logie speech seemed to be the only piece of evidence that Justice Lee would have even thought to point to as something that could have awarded Bruce Lehrmann aggravated damages, that was something that could have damaged his criminal trial, and therefore something that he should have been giving money for. Now, obviously, we do know that he hasn't been paid any aggravated damages at all.
He was highly critical of the Logie speech and of 10's sort of coyness about that. 10 refused to waive privilege over the advice it had given to Lisa Wilkinson about that speech. And that's why Lisa Wilkinson went out and got her own very expensive senior counsel, Sue Chrysanthu, and then brought Channel 10 to court to force them to pay Sue Chrysanthu's bills. Lisa Wilkinson was thrown under the bus by Channel 10. That is absolutely clear. They tried to hang her out to dry for that Logie speech. The judge has found that 10 advised her to make it, legaled it, approved it, and did it because they wanted to show some public support for Brittany Higgins. And the judge essentially found that Network 10, nearly blew up the criminal trial altogether and was, contemptuous of the process of justice.
Now, there was one other network that joined the mix later on in the piece, and that was the 7 Network, and of course the evidence of former Spotlight producer Taylor Auerbach. What did you make of what the judge thought about Taylor?
Well, it didn't really go anywhere at all. He was not impressed with Taylor Auerbach as a witness. Network 7 had tried to say that Taylor was to be believed because he'd been very frank in the witness box in making admissions against his own interests, i.e. that he hated people at Channel 7 and that he wanted revenge, essentially, for having been sacked. The judge is obviously a golfer, I reckon, Ellie. Do you think
he definitely gives golfing energy. I think that's about right.
But he was quite disturbed, I think, by a video that was played to the court of Taylor Auerbach smashing the golf clubs of one of his former friends, another producer at Network 7. The Auerbach story was a complete sideshow. It didn't actually help 10 at all.
No.
It was a waste of the court's time, I think, the judge found, because he he really didn't refer to it in the reasons that he read aloud today.
No, not at all. I think it got all of a 1.5 minute reference at the very, very beginning.
So what now for Bruce Lehrmann? He's been found to be a rapist. He's facing another criminal charge relating to a sexual matter. This is in Toowoomba in the state of Queensland. Of course, nothing has been proven against Bruce Lehrmann, and he's innocent until proven guilty in that matter. But what does his life look like now?
Oh, I imagine that he's. It's not a great day to be Bruce Lehrmann. He could be facing a huge cost bill coming towards him. We know the parties are going to be debating costs in coming weeks, whether or not he needs to pay Network 10's legal bills. That's going to be a huge bill considering the barristers that they had on board.
Yeah, Matt Collins alone charges $12,000 a day.
Oh, absolutely, and we got some gauge of how Sue Chrysanthou charges, and all of the solicitors working for Network 10 as well during that cross claim. So look, it's a bad day to be Bruce Lehrmann, and I don't think that he is going to be cracking open a beer tonight and celebrating.
And as for Brittany Higgins, Lisa Wilkinson came out of court and said this was vindication of Brittany Higgins and her story. How do you think she'll be feeling today?
She was ultimately telling the truth. She was raped by Bruce Lehrmann. We also know though that she's facing her own defamation matter over in WA alongside her partner David Shiraz. Liberal Senator Linda Reynolds is suing both her and Mr Shiraz for defamation over social media posts that they made about her.
There's plenty of other legal matters on foot, so this won't be the last we hear of this, Ellie, and probably won't be the last time we talk about it.
I don't think so.
Thanks for joining me.
Pleasure.